It's funny, when you watch a film from a film's perspective, you watch it, but when you watch it from a perspective of observing it, you have a totally different understanding, agreed? So what do we see there? You could see that people get into a bubble of just doing stuff. And they get to a point where they haven't actually realised that a pattern's formed and there's no real connection at all. They're just functioning to survive. Does that make sense? Yes or no? And there's 4 levels I want to talk about. Now, I'd be interested to see where you think they were as we go through this. So I'd like you to write these down. So 4 levels of relationship. And this can exist in intimate relationships, definitely, but also in family relationships, even friendships. So, and some of it obviously doesn't apply directly to close friendships, but think about family members, think about parents. But if you are in a relationship or are going to go into another relationship or have been in relationships in the past, be aware of this as well. So a level 1 relationship is basically what we call trading. Just write that down, trading. You're trading something with somebody else to be in that relationship. So you're giving up. It could be physical, you just met and it's a short lasting relationship. If we're talking about couples, it's very physical, it's very intimate, and it might even be that you're definitely not matched to be together for a long time, but at that moment in time, you just kind of meet each other's needs. You just bring something to the table. If I give you this, you give me that. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's emotional. It might be that one person's emotionally closed and they've got together because the other person's in a slightly better place and they just need someone who's vulnerable. And actually, I've seen couples where one person's very strong and they've brought a wounded person, they felt sorry for them. That's become a relationship. And instead of that relationship only lasting for the length of that short period, it carries on. But the person that was wounded now has grown and sorted themselves out, but they've outgrown the original person. Does that make any sense? I actually did a couples intervention. Funnily enough, Mum was with me, Savannah. We did this years ago. They came to our house, and this woman had been in a physically abusive relationship previously, and she met a guy that was really gentle, had himself had a few personal challenges, and he was so soft and so inoffensive that he was directly opposite to what she'd been in for the last 2 years. Does that make any sense? So she naturally connected with this guy because he was safe and she could bring something to the table, which was vulnerability. He brought security to the table and they got married within about 2 months. So they were married within 2 months. We met them a year after they got married and they were just completely in different places. And she said, he's not the guy I thought he was. That's because she'd now repaired herself. She'd come back out of her wounds, out of a bad relationship. She now knew what she wanted and felt strong. And he was definitely not what she wanted. And he asked me if I could fix their relationship. And as soon as they were there for about 10 minutes, we knew it wasn't going to happen. So, the intervention ended up in them actually splitting up. But they basically met on a level 1 relationship. He's trying to achieve a level 4 relationship. It just never was going to happen because they'd come into the relationship from the wrong space to start with. Does that make any sense? For the kids here, it'd be a bit like you falling out with a friend of yours and there's someone else at school that you don't necessarily get on with as well. But because you've had a bad fallout with your friend, you go and hang out with somebody else for a while. And this happens to adults as well. And then you're there for a bit, but then your other friend goes, oh, well, let's hang out again. And then you suddenly go back to the other friend again. So the other person that you went to be a friend with, they feel wounded because they've had somebody go and be their mate. And this happens a lot, by the way, in human dynamics. I see it in schools, unfortunately, a lot. But with intimate partners, that's not a good place to be. They're usually short-lived, by the way, very short-lived. Level 2 relationship is your classic post-war type relationship. Possibly, I don't want to try and label things, but we know culturally certain Asian marriages have arranged marriages where, because of financial situations, casting, etc. But in the Western world, this would often be financial dependency. So 2 people connect, they meet, there's kind of an intimate relationship to start with, but there's an underlying, you'll often see this with older and younger people. So somebody's a lot older, they meet somebody who's a lot younger, it could be he or she, doesn't matter which way around it is, but one is more supportive, emotionally, financially, quite traditional type relationship. One of the people tends to be more stable. So the old relationships that we used to see back in the 40s, 50s, where husband was the financial person, stable, because back in those days there wasn't the availability for ladies to go and work. And that relationship stayed like that for years. And she or he grew more and more unhappy, for example. I mean, don't get me wrong, they can work, but they're not a wow relationship. Does that make any sense? They're sort of, if you gave it a colour, it'd be like a a sort of a greyish colour. It just gets by. And some of you may have witnessed it, you might have even seen it in people around you, your parents, you may have had that experience yourself. What I've noticed, particularly if I've ever done any interventional work, is with a level 2 relationship, the minute the person that's the financially dependent person, the person that's providing the dependency, i.e. the person that's earning the money, or is quite strong emotionally, if that person gets ill, sick, or financially loses their stability, I find that relationship tends to break up, because it's been held together by the dependency of one being stronger financially or emotionally. Does that make any sense? That's very common. Or you'll see a situation where the financially dependent person, the one that they're relying on, that person passes away. I've seen this where one half has died, and the person that was all these years dependent suddenly gets themselves on their feet, goes off into a new relationship, and that becomes an amazing relationship compared to the one they were in for 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm saying these are the typical forms they come in.